Welcome to the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, your host. We're talking all about mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling small businesses, as well as corporate law. We are taking our experience closing over $10 billion of transactions since founding Dean Street Law 5 years ago, and my experience being an M&A and corporate attorney for over a decade and making it accessible to you as an entrepreneur. I hope that this helps you in navigating the complex world of mergers and acquisitions. And also, we're always happy to be a resource for you here at Dean Street Law. You can always apply to work with us through our complimentary consultations linked in our show notes. And a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who's subscribed and left us a 5-star review. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and also leave us a 5-star review. It's one of the best ways to support us as a small business. And also be sure to share with your friends and colleagues on social media, through text, email, or however is easiest. It means the world to us that you're supporting our content and helps us make more to support you in your journey. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I am so excited to bring you this episode. Today I have with me Rebcca K, founder and managing partner of PIC, which is a great operating group to assist owners in building value through strategy, sales, and operations. Rebcca, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today talking with Laura, who definitely comes from the same world of building value for our clients. And so I'm really excited to have a conversation about a mutually interesting topic to both of us and our clients and our work that we love day to day.
Absolutely. How did you get involved with starting PIC?
That's such a good question, Laura. I kind of just fell into it. I worked in 6 different industries, wore a lot of different hats, worked in pre-revenue size organizations all the way to $15 billion and thousands of employees. And so my experience is quite wide and deep. And this is the culmination of 15 years of my work. And it's really what I wake up and what I'm called to do. And so it just was a natural evolution of all the experiences and tools and wisdom I've accumulated over the years. And I was able to put it into one company. And so that's how it happened.
I love it. Well, I'm super excited to learn more because as an entrepreneur myself, I am always loving tinkering with my businesses and continuing to evolve operations on a day-to-day basis to build excellence, profitability, and more. And strategy is one of my favorite topics. So this is so fantastic. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Is there anything else you wanted to share about your background or anything else about you or PIC to kind of frame this conversation?
I think I'm a bit of an outlier in the fact that I didn't come into this, I wasn't raised in this I wasn't given the roadmap of this is how you build an operating group or this is how you build value. My family's a bunch of engineers who are very talented, but they're very solid employees, right? That's what they like to be with one company for a long time. And so I've kind of had to find my own way. I would sum up to say is that you can kind of create your own adventure, right? And figure out what you love, what you don't love, who you resonate with, and create your own style. And I hope that through this conversation with you, as well as talking about building value in very tactical and high-level strategic ways, we can also give folks hope that you don't have to fit the mold to everything else. You can be yourself and find the people and the problems and the style that is you, that is authentically you, and that brings value to the world.
Oh, that's so incredible. I think it's always so important to layer entrepreneurial aspirations with also lifestyle design or however you might phrase it to make sure that ultimately the business isn't driving you, you're driving the business.
Absolutely. I love that. I love setting up your constraints, working the best with what you got and enjoying life. Like this is fun. Like I am enjoying the heck out of my life and what I am building. And is it perfect? No, but that's part of the fun with it is right. Oh, it's a new problem. And how do you use the best of what you've got and who you are to get the best outcome? And that's what we do with our businesses, what we do with our clients, but also what we do with our entire lifestyle design, like you said.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people have learned more about entrepreneurship through acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
buying a business to
Yeah.
become an entrepreneur. And when you think of this being added to an MBA program, entrepreneurship through acquisition, we often see MBA programs. I did an MBA myself
Yeah.
at Villanova. You often see MBA programs have very subject driven topics and courses, marketing, sales, information management, right? Like there's very different types of economics, finance, etc. But they don't necessarily talk about driving value through operations.
Yeah.
How do you think we can share more about this in both an educational setting as well as just in the marketplace as well?
Oh my gosh, great question, Laura. I think a lot of colleges and educational settings go about it kind of backwards. They start with the tool at the forefront and learning the tool as opposed to the end game, which is how do you create value, right? Like the reason that you have a skill or a tool or you do certain actions is to build value, which is done through delighting the customer, building a great product or service, and then building the infrastructure around acquiring new customers, delivering, executing, implementing, and then repeat, right? And then obtaining more customers through word of mouth, and then repeat customers. And I think what I would tell to the educational system, and I just did a talk at a university, and the provost asked me a very specific question. He said, Rebecca, if you were giving me advice as an advisor, what would you sell? And I would say, you need to think that your product is great students that are prepared for the workforce with what the market demands. And you need to be tied in and have partnerships with key industry leaders who are going to hire your product, which is your students, and make sure you work backwards from understanding what success looks like for an entry-level hire. And then how do you backfill that to not only give them head knowledge, which is valuable, but actually practical experience, internships, design projects, where they're really actually modeling. I have a client that they just had a wonderful customer success survey done by a local university that gave them actual value. And then me working with them as an operating partner and group, I was able to take those insights, which were very detailed and valuable, and able to get a head start on the project I'm doing with them. And so that's a great example of somebody using it practically, because they gave me a very good starting point. And with that client, I was able to give them, just from reading the survey and distilling the data without even doing any more work, I was able to give them 2 ideas of quick wins to increase revenue, right? So it's like that kind of experience, having professors and industry, make professors and university leadership make connections with industry, you're going to see that that's a great segue to make sure your students are successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what are your thoughts too on even just having a more open conversation about value generation with employees, even the most new employees,
Yeah.
entry level employees? Because I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you might be thinking me, myself, and I, and or my highest level of leadership are talking what's profit, what's value, and then we're talking about here are strategic plans to increase value, et cetera. But sometimes it just doesn't get messaged correctly all the way down the line. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness, Laura, I love that question. And it shows your heart as a business owner and leader and the way you think, which I love. One of the things I work on in strategic planning with clients is that one of the things they need to look at, and even for my own business, is that if you have your vision, which I work on with folks, on your wall, can everybody, no matter where they are in the organization, entry level to senior to executive, point at that vision and understand how they tactically are impacting that, and then what actions either are additive or detractive from that. And if they do a very honest, a very real assessment of their day-to-day activities, are those actions building towards that vision, or is it taking away? And if they feel that it's taking away or believe it's taking away, then bring it up, have a conversation. And maybe, they might be wrong, but at least they're thinking and they're being trained in a value creation mindset. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would suggest is, first of all, it's a twofold responsibility. You as the leadership needs to be able to be very clear and be able to communicate with the utmost clarity and integrity, what that is, and being able to translate to where they understand it. But they also have the responsibility to take that knowledge and apply it to their day-to-day activities.
Certainly. To me, it's like telling everybody we're going to be rowing this ship, but yes, I'm not going to tell you where we're rowing it to, as opposed to everybody having a clear eyesight on the horizon where we're going, and then all of the rowers are rowing at the same speed and in harmony with one another. And ultimately, you're going to get there a lot quicker, more efficiently, and probably happier than if you were kind of all rowers rowing a boat in a different way.
Absolutely. Laura, I think when I work with folks, you said it very well, that when one of the things that I know that we are successful is that not only are you seeing positive results on paper, right? Either in the near term or long term with your net profit, your revenue, your operational expenses are all those markers are improving, NPS, whatever. But you have happy employees, happy partners, happy leaders, and then also obviously happy customers, right? So they are not mutually exclusive, right? You can do both, but it has to be done the right way, in the right time, in the right order, and not break the system while you make those changes towards rowing the boat all together.
Certainly. When it comes to navigating corporate law, entrepreneurship, and managing small businesses, experience matters. Dean Street Law is a boutique corporate firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions and additional focus in real estate, commercial transactions, finance, and corporate governance. With over $10 billion in deals closed, Dean Street Law has extensive experience representing hundreds of clients in thousands of transactions, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Whether you need startup guidance or advice on closing multi-million or multi-billion dollar deals, we're your trusted partner every step of the way. Visit deanstreetlaw.com in the show notes to schedule a complimentary consultation. What are your thoughts on what is the smallest investment an owner can make in moving their operational strategy or execution forward?
Sure thing. So I always think, and this is such a colloquialism, crawl, walk, run, right? So before you think about adding anything, people, processes, systems, structure, I don't care, take a very honest look and say, what we're doing today, working to the best of its ability, where is it painful? And usually what I find the most prime targets for improvement are implementation. So the handoff between sales and operations, right? That making sure that operations is able to deliver what sales promise, because so much trust gets broken there. So making sure that through the entire customer journey, that there's nothing that's being dropped unintentionally or intentionally, and that it is a smooth, and that every piece, every person is working to their best capacity and best productivity. And once you've got that humming, then you can take on more. You can talk about, can we add more clients? Do we have more capacity to add more clients into the machine? Can we look at new markets? Can we look at new products? How do we make sure we're taking the happy customers and making sure we have a really high net promoter score so that we can, have that word of mouth and be able to increase our new client acquisition through just happy word of mouth, right? So that's what I would say is before you run and before you add anything new, make sure the foundation is secure.
That's super, super helpful. And for someone who's new to this conversation, who might not know what Net Promoter Score is, can you share that?
Yes. So it is folks who, when you take a customer survey, I'm sure we've all gotten them from pretty much any shopping experience, they might ask you, how likely are you to refer this to a friend? And if you score, usually I think it's in the 9 or 10 out of 10 that you're willing to refer somebody, then that goes towards your positive NPS score. You're not neutral. You're a believer. You're a supporter. You're very happy. And so that is what goes towards saying, hey, we've got a very happy customer base.
Mm-hmm. That's super helpful. And then what are you doing to adapt with changing times within your company? How does AI play a factor in all the things that you're working on internally, externally? I know from a legal perspective, I now have clients who are saying, oh, I know of this solution. I know of this solution. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't apply in mergers and acquisitions. That applies in litigation,
Yep.
So I'm sure you're experiencing the same things, both externally as well as internally. How are you using the rapid change in environment as well as AI?
Honestly, Laura, it's actually just added more opportunity for us, which is fantastic because because the fact that I think what people don't realize a lot of the time, especially in high thinking type of work and complexity and strategic, all that type of thing, anytime you add a tool, and AI is just really a very, just another iteration of a large enterprise type tool that works incredibly well when done well, but it is it's a lot of change management. It's a lot of, you still need humans in the loop to make sure that the tool is doing its job and doing well. And so I'm exploring partnerships with folks that are on the AI due diligence side within, looking at mergers and acquisitions. But a big part of it is looking at, hey, you still need somebody to help. The system can do as well as the human inputs and uses out of it. So you still need that human touch to herd the cats to hey, actually use the tool and get the stuff done and come back to the tool. And yes, there is notifications. Yes, there is the amount of time that I am seeing folks go through the diligence process is significantly less when it comes to the actual technical part, but there's still the human pieces of it, the human element that needs to be enabled. And that's an opportunity for us. And I think part of it is understanding there's one key truth I believe confident enough to hang my hat on at this point is, as long as you have humans in the business, you're always going to need humans to interact and make sure things move forward. Until you have no more humans, and we've seen this in the industry at scale with Salesforce. Salesforce is one of my favorite businesses to look at as a large industry enterprise, and it's because their CEO Mark is a first adapter. He's a Silicon Valley insider. His type of data and his business is all sales, and so when you look at folks who are more risk adverse versus not, they're more risk accepting. Sales versus like legal and engineering, right? Like sales is, there's less risk involved usually, and so they're more. I think he is the perfect candidate to look at somebody that makes wide sweeping AI changes at scale. And what they did is he, laid off quite a bit of humans and replaced them with AI agents. But look, I was listening to a podcast where he was talking, and it was very interesting. He actually, I believe, had to hire back some humans at a senior level to work with their AI agents. And so, even in that case, you're seeing folks they have every reason in the world to minimize, human interaction and are very pro AI, still saying humans definitely have value. So who knows what will happen in 50 years, but from right now, what we're seeing in the market, that's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then also wanted to ask more in terms of, AI utilization that comes with, like you said, risk, but also cost and monetization. Where do you see opportunity for clients as well as your own company using AI in a way that manages those risks? You mentioned sales being one of them.
Mm-hmm. I would say, there's many opportunities and I'm always open to them, but whenever I work with clients or even ourselves, and this is all back to the boring fundamentals, right? Anything we do, especially new, I want to do the foundation and the basics manually, and then layer AI on top of it once you figure it out and you work out the kinks. And so there's, I think for us, looking at using AI to help qualify leads, looking at AI to help, even in communication, just in text generation. Like I love using AI to be almost like help me word this email in a way that it gets this point across, and it helps me edit a lot of my communication, because so much of my job is communication to my team, to my clients, expectations management. And I know what I need to say in my head and how it needs to say, but it helps me come up with an elegant, refined, correct response much faster than I could just myself. So I think the biggest day-to-day use for me is copywriting, right? Emails, everything, and takes what's in my brain and what I need to say and puts it out there in a much more effective, faster way for me.
That's super helpful. For us and our businesses, it's a lot of internal implementation and using it to make you better at your job. So like, for instance, I might use it for brainstorming and say, tell me like what's wrong here, or ask me more questions so I can flesh this idea out more, especially, on the voice enabled aspects of AI where you can just have a conversation. That's always super helpful for me, that it just keeps drilling down more information about an idea that I have. And then once I do that, then I create an output related to my idea that I can share with my team. And then I'm sharing with them, a more fluid information about what I'm thinking in more specificity, in an easier way for me to download than to have spent an hour looking at a computer screen and trying to, pour out of these nuances just from my own head instead of prompts or something like that. So those are some, general ways we use it in a lot in our business, but all for internal. But there's been interesting things. I know that Gusto, for instance, started creating GPTs to answer. It was like train a GPT on all of the internal training that the team members have, that the Gusto employees have, and then they would use it to, enable an employee to ask a question about an SOP, or like, what should I do in this situation? And then it would use the SOPs. But then they still found that, it's not flawless. You really have to know the business, know the SOPs, and double check that it's correct. But, as things continue to improve, I think we'll see more opportunity for use to I don't think it's just generally easy to replace people, but to make your people better. That's what I find we're using it for.
That's a great insight. I think that's very helpful. Thanks for sharing.
Thinking about buying a business? Unlock the secrets of successful acquisitions with Acquisition Insights, your legal roadmap for success. With over 81 modules of video lectures, written materials, guides, and checklists, we provide in-depth guidance to navigate every step of the process. From initial interest to closing the deal, get the expertise you need to make informed decisions. You can also access our battle-tested templates in the Acquisition Insights course and templates bundle, including our template LOIs, letters of intent, pre- and post-LOI due diligence request list, material deal terms lists, and more. Visit lauradifrancesco.co/the-shop today and take the first step towards buying your dream business. All the links are in the show notes. So when you're thinking through strategies and operational aspects that you want to improve with a client, how do you ensure buy-in and execution readiness so you're not just giving ideas that die?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's such a good question, Laura. And I'm so glad you asked it, because it's such a big piece. I think what I've just found to do naturally, because for the scope and the complexity and the scale of the projects I've done through the years, from standing up new product management functions and in an engineering multi-billion-dollar organization to, doing M&A integration, that sort of thing. So much of success is exactly what you said, and so many people miss it. It's because it's not just getting a plan on paper that looks pretty and should work in theory, right? That educational theory. It is understanding the context, the environment, the personalities, and how to communicate to people truth, to power, and to people who are emotionally sensitive in a way that doesn't turn them off. And so it is taking a great plan, but also your people skills, emotional intelligence, the architecture, and understanding what to say, when to say, to who to say, and what sequence to do it, and what level of information that is so impactful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because I feel like even when you have a great strategic plan, you're not going to be able to think of everything, and you're going to have constraints and things that you didn't think about, and problem solving around implementation as constant things, that it becomes an iterative process once you have the idea it
Yep.
becomes an iterative process to implement?
I think part of it is that the way I structure projects is very intentional, that we build it like in an agile fashion where you do piece by piece and you're checking assumptions and you're checking resource alignment and you're checking capacity and you're checking that you're going in the right direction together as a team iteratively. Not, okay, I'm going to go off for 3 months, develop this thing and come back. They're like, that's not even what I wanted. It is, I think a lot of our projects will look like me setting up the initial, or we will set up the initial framework about what we need to solve to get to the outcome that we have agreed upon with the client. What are the in-depth questions and data we need? What do we have from public sources, from the information they've given us, anything else? And then we understand what gaps we have. And then we come back to the client, we ask them to fill in what other gaps, whether it be through asynchronous videos, interviews, them taking time to fill out the information themselves. Then with that complete information, then we're able to prioritize and understand, here's all the different levers we can pull to make this happen. Here's what, even it can even be a together session with the client where we are prioritizing based on what are their key values and what's our priority to their firm, right? One thing people get wrong in a lot of textbook learning is that they think, okay, this is the way a project's supposed to be, and here's how you prioritize. You do it by this way, and you do it in this order every single time. No, you have to understand, what is their cash position? What's their sense of urgency? What are the things that they've got going on all across the organization that are going to take their prioritization? How do you truly rack and stack, and how do you implement? And it's a collaborative process. So when you come to your final list of what do I need to do when, the client has done it with you. You've walked the path together. So then upon there, it's just a simple not simple, but then it's just project management. They're already bought in emotionally. They've already built it with you. It's not Rebecca's plan and they're like, we just have to follow it because she's somewhat intelligent and kind of has good ideas, so I guess we'll go along with it. No, they see themselves both emotionally and mentally, and then they bought in and they believe in it. And then just it's a very much more simple execution because it's well thought out, they're bought in, and then you just manage and you execute the plan, and then you help keep each other accountable to make sure it happens.
That's super, super helpful. Do you work with them on valuing the success of the implementation, financial numbers around that?
So basics I can, but when it comes to really, if it's a very complex financial structure, I have partners that I can lean on that are their bread and butter, and what they do all day is live and breathe numbers. I think one of the things that I like to be very honest with is what are we good at? What can we deliver on really well versus you might want to find a third party. I can refer you, or I can bring somebody in, and it's very client centric. I would never ever want somebody to be in a place, but yes, everything that we do, if it makes sense to validate with numbers, is absolutely done that way. And if we're not the right people, that's not the right level of depth, we will bring somebody else or partner or find even, and same goes with legal, right? Like I know where my boundaries and accounting, everything, right? Like I want my client to win and I want my partners to win. So it's like, where are those boundaries? And if it's starting to get outside of that, we bring somebody else along to help.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you share more about how you zoom out with strategy to then zoom in with tactics? I think sometimes people get so trigger happy with taking action that they forget the alignment and strategy and everything like that.
Oh my gosh, Laura, yes. And I think to be effective, you got to do both well. And some people, I think what I've noticed is that you've got a lot of times two camps. One camp that's really good at understanding the big picture and like visualizing where they'd like to go, but they're not really doers, not really roll up your sleeves and get it done types. And then you have folks that just like to get stuff done, but then they're like, what are you trying to do? Are you just trying to check off a list versus are you doing stuff that actually moves the needle forward? And the way that I would approach this is that you always want to start with the end in mind, which is the strategy and how you do it. So it's the why and the how and the what, right? But then once you align at the top level of what that is for that particular project, then you bring in the tactical plan that is going to achieve, and they have to be together, right? You can't make one without the other. And so I always start at the big picture and make sure we're all aligned. Here's the vision, and then here are the 3 major rocks or 3 to 5 rocks that we have to move the ball forward, get the strategy done, and to achieve our goal. But then you have to have your plan, and this is the execution plan. To be able to get rock one, you have to do these 3 things, and then that goes into who's doing it, when, where, how, etc. And then you manage that plan and count it successfully, hopefully, when it's done, or fix it, or pivot, or add things in as you get down the road. I mean, I cannot tell you how many. Usually the projects we have run very smoothly because it's very intentional and there's a lot of experience behind that, but there's always unknowns, right? Maybe we don't have all the information up front, or we learn something, or something changes, people leave. The constraints, the factors, environment change. And one of the important pieces is change management. How do you pivot in flight and say, oh, okay, new information. Is it a signal that we need to go change something, or are we okay to keep it as is?
Mm-hmm. That's super, super helpful. Well, I'd love to hear more about who is your client that you like to work with, and what industries, what stage of company, etc.
Yes, Laura, we work with quite a variety of folks, but I would say the results for the business would be most exciting in this specific situation. 3 to 5 years before a company is considering an exit, whether it's a succession plan, a sale. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times folks that are under the 50 million range, 5 to 50 million range, they are usually an owner-built business that has put their heart, soul, and sweat into this enterprise. And a lot of times the business, they're heavily involved in the day-to-day. And if my team can help, a couple years out, where we can identify a couple big rocks to get them to be in a much more buyer attractive organization, or making it easier for succession, or if they want to stay in the business but they want to go play more golf or travel more, but still stay involved, we can design it for them where, one, it either sets up their life to thrive in the way that they would like, or builds a significant amount of enterprise value where it's the difference of millions of dollars in their pocket upon exit, right? Depending on where they want to go. So I would say for folks in industry, we specialize in the services industry. We work in manufacturing, but we're not gonna, if somebody is a values aligned, a great client to work with, we're not going to say no, right? But I would say they would be needing to experience bottlenecks, a lack of clarity due to growth, leadership changes, even layoffs, new markets, things that are, how do we work smarter, not harder to get these outcomes? But that's what I would say. Usually, 5 million to 50 million in revenue, and in those industries I talked about.
Mm-hmm. That's super helpful. And do you also work with folks who have bought a business and are then looking to optimize and increase value through operations?
Absolutely. Yes. The thing is, though, I found with people that are buying, usually they have a plan of how they plan to improve the business. So they at least want to try it out for a year, and sometimes they get stuck and they're like, oh, give us a call. But yes, absolutely. Or if you're looking to acquire and you've got cash and you're like, hey, I would like to talk to some folks about doing some operating group work, that would be a good fit as well.
Absolutely. Those businesses who are looking to grow through acquisitions.
Yes, absolutely.
Strategic acquisitions. Super helpful. Awesome. Well, I have loved this conversation. I feel like it's been such a value add and so inspiring to me. These are the things that just jazz me up and excite me so much. So thank you so much for taking your time to share your knowledge and expertise with us. All of your contact information will be in the show notes, but I'd love for you to share how can people get a hold of you, and what's the best way to connect with you?
Absolutely, Laura. So the way that you can best get in touch with me is my first name, Rebcca, with 2 C's, at PICfirm.com, or just find me on LinkedIn under Rebcca K or PIC Operating Group.
Awesome. Well, I would love it for everybody. If you loved this show, please be sure to connect with Rebcca on LinkedIn, reach out to her if it's a good fit for you, show some love on LinkedIn posts. We'll be sharing this on our LinkedIn and Search Funder and other platforms as well. So show some love and connect with Rebcca. Thank you, Rebcca, so much. And everybody, if you'd like to tune into the next episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast, we talk all about mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling businesses, and so much more. We're also a corporate law firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions, so you can always connect with us also. Thank you, Rebcca, so much for sharing this with us, and we really appreciate it. Cheers, everyone, and happy deal making.
Happy deal making.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and that it brought you one step closer to mastering the art of mergers and acquisitions. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in our discussion, please leave a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us. And share this podcast with your network, friends, and colleagues. For more in-depth resources, be sure to visit our website, deanstreetlaw.com, where you can find articles, guides, and more information on our services. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest episodes, updates, tips, and exclusive content. You can find us on LinkedIn, Search Funder, at LMDFrancesco on X, and at Dean Street Law on Instagram. Join us on our next episode where we'll explore more deal-making insights. Cheers and happy deal-making.